I picked this community because the brochure promised predictable peace. I work all day turning noise into signal. At home, I wanted plants, a cat, and a place to stack library books. The first warning sign wasn't loud. It was a paper slip, trash cart visible from street. Okay, fair. My cart's wheel was crooked. I fixed it. I sent a photo. The fine stayed. Next billing cycle, said Evan, the property manager, like the calendar was in charge. Then came fence color non-compliant. The guide said neutral wood tone. I used the sample chip from the clubhouse. Clara said, too warm. I repainted. The fine stayed. The administration fee doubled. I started a folder, because that's what I do when I don't want to lose myself. HOA_202X. The big one arrived on a pale afternoon. Unauthorized structure, shed/awning. Remove immediately. Attached were 3 photos. A small gray shed snuggled against a fence, a shadow slanting across concrete, a gutter spout on the right edge. My stomach didn't drop. Cocked its head like a dog hearing a word it knows. My patio doesn't have concrete. It's pavers. My gutter is on the left. My neighbor's rosemary bush, impossible to miss, wasn't in the frame. I wrote a polite email. Hi, Evan. I don't have a shed. Could this be another unit? He replied with a near copy/paste. Violations are based on photographic evidence collected during routine inspections. He included the balance due, plus a note that unpaid amounts may result in a lien and eventual foreclosure. I sat with the word eventual like it was a threat learning to walk. My next-door neighbor Monica has a doorbell cam and a dash cam she uses for work. I asked if she'd mind pulling a clip from the day the photos were supposedly taken. She said yes before I finished the sentence, because her last letter had said her flowers were overgrown in a week it had snowed. We watched her doorbell cam timeline. My patio was empty that entire day. The only structure visible was a cardboard box that sat for an hour before I brought it inside. I pulled basic metadata from the JPGs the HOA had sent. EXIF snapshot. Device model string that matched a phone Clara often waves around at meetings. A month that didn't match the letterhead. GPS field empty. Not unusual. Some phones strip it. I'm not a forensics lab. I'm just good at reading hints. I overlaid the shed photo with a Google Street View of the back rows. The gutter seams matched a different building. The concrete joint lines matched a lot behind the mail kiosk, not my patio. The shadow direction looked like a different season. To sanity check myself, I pulled public weather records. Weather archive. The day the photo claims, steady rain. The photo, dry, crisp shadows. I sent a calm appeal with attachments. Monica's neighbor cam still showing my empty patio, my notes on gutter direction, the weather mismatch. Evan replied, appeal denied. Evidence insufficient. Please use the formal form. I had already used the formal form. He sent a new one and said the old one wasn't received in time. I had a delivery receipt. He said, system issue. The fine gained a late fee. I started running into a rumor. A developer called Solace Partners had been buying units, offering clean exits to owners who couldn't keep up with dues. A few homes had changed hands quickly after liens. Maybe coincidence. Maybe pattern. Vince, the handyman, was suddenly everywhere, measuring things that might be non-compliant. He and Clara chatted like co-hosts at a show I hadn't auditioned for. I asked Clara nicely if we could walk together and look at the alleged shed spot. She smiled with too many teeth and said, the board acts on evidence. We don't debate in the field. I asked if the board could publish violation photos with dates and an owner's right to respond before fines hit accounts. We'll consider enhancements, she said, which is HOA for no. I asked for my ledger. Violation ledger. Original $75. Trash. $50. Fence tone. $150. Shed charges. $325. Admin. $135. Late. And a line labeled collection prep. The footer said delinquent accounts may be sent to collections and foreclosure remedies, may be pursued per CC and RS. This started to feel less like tidy and more like tilt. I stopped trying to win emails and started doing the thing I know, show, don't tell. I printed 3 sheets. A EXIF snapshot. Not the tech soup. Just photo taken on a different month than letter. Device consistent with one board member's phone. No location data. Weather archive. This day rain. Photo. Dry with crisp shadows. Neighbor cam still. Same day window, my patio empty. No shed. I also printed a simple drawing I called shadow sketch. The sun angle over our lanes in late fall versus late spring. How shadows lean different ways on our block. No degrees, no maps. Just two arrows and the phrase, "These are not the same." I tried the formal appeal again with the packet. Evan sent back, "We regret we cannot accept third-party media due to privacy." Monica laughed so hard she snorted. "Tell them the third party is my doorbell and it consents," she said. "We did not send that." Monica also pointed out something I'd missed. A neighbor 3 doors down actually has a small gray shed like the one in the photo. It's technically allowed with approval. He'd gotten approval in spring. The gutter, concrete, fence line matched his place exactly. I visited him and, with his permission, snapped a photo from the public path. Same seam, same knot in the fence board. I redacted his unit number and included it in a new packet labeled wrong house. Clara replied on board letterhead. The board stands by our inspections. Continued abuse of the appeal process may result in additional administrative charges. Abuse. I once wrote an email asking if we could note the migratory birds in the newsletter. Now I was the abuser. I started talking to other owners. The trick to not sounding like a conspiracy theorist is to bring one page and a pen, not a rant. I asked what they needed from the HOA. Most said, clarity. Then I asked if they'd be comfortable signing a proxy for a special meeting, with a clause that the proxy couldn't be transferred or substituted, no transfer/no substitution, and could only be used for a specific agenda. 1. Freeze fines/liens tied to disputed photo evidence. 2. Commission an independent audit of HOA finances and vendor contracts, especially Vince's. 3. Schedule a vote of no confidence in the current board officers and appoint an interim committee until a proper election. I made the proxy 1 page, readable with checkboxes. I kept my voice low and my eyes kind. People signed. I kept collecting evidence that would make sense to non-tech people. Photos of our back gutters with little colored stickers showing left versus right. A printout of the CC and RS section that says fines require reasonable and verifiable evidence. A screenshot of the management portal saying my appeal was in review the same day Evan emailed, not received. I also requested bank statements through a records inspection right in our bylaws. Evan stalled. The board will need to approve any inspection. Clara wrote me that financials would be presented at the annual meeting, which historically is a dessert table and a monologue. 2 owners quietly told me Solace Partners had left packets at their doors with transition options after their fines escalated. The packets looked kind. The numbers didn't. "We just want to help owners out of stressful situations," said the brochure. The buyout amounts would barely cover their mortgages. Both of those owners had violations for things they swear didn't exist. While Evan processed my appeal for the 5th time, another letter came. Failure to cure will result in lien proceedings. The number was now large enough to make me nauseous. I stopped watering my new rosemary because I needed both hands on the wheel. So I filed the paperwork to call a special meeting. Our bylaws allow it with a set of owner signatures, or proxies. I crossed the threshold by a healthy margin. Evan tried to reject half the proxies for format issues. I had printed them with a line for initials on every page to prevent substitution. I brought original wet signatures. I included copies of IDs where owners agreed. The HOA's lawyer, finally looped in, wrote a short message. Per bylaws, the meeting must be scheduled. I picked a week when people were still around and asked the library for their big room. Clara announced she would address the misinformation campaign. I called it an agenda. The plan for the meeting isn't drama. It's 3 slides and 2 motions. Slide 1, EXIF snapshot in plain English. Photo evidence does not line up with the letter it wrote in on. Slide 2, weather archive and shadow sketch. Wrong day, wrong light. A slide 3, Neighbor cam still, and wrong house overlay. This is a different patio. Then the motions. Freeze disputed fines and halt lien filings until an independent review is complete. Authorize an audit of bank statements and vendor payments. Focus on contracts to Vince. Vote no confidence in current board officers and appoint an interim committee until a proper election under transparent rules. Am I the asshole for opting out of endless talk to the board nicely and going straight to a special meeting to freeze fines and demand an audit, knowing it will embarrass Clara, annoy the manager, and make the handyman and the developer very uncomfortable? Update 1. I stopped arguing in paragraphs and started labeling things like a museum. Every time the HOA sent a letter, it went behind a colored tab. Every time Evan claimed a form had not arrived, I printed the submission screen with the timestamp and stapled it to the letter that said the opposite. I wasn't trying to win a debate. I was building the kind of file a room full of neighbors could understand in 3 breaths. Evan pushed back the only way bureaucrats know how: new forms, new checklists, new places for a request to fall into. He announced a revised appeal format and warned that improperly formatted appeals will not be considered. I replied with the format he wanted, plus the one in the bylaws, plus a paper copy delivered to the management office with a photo of me sliding it under the glass. Management portal log. Appeal received. Same day as his email, not received. I printed both on one page and circled the conflict like a teacher who still believes in red pens. Meanwhile, the rumor about Solace Partners got teeth. A neighbor 2 buildings over showed me a glossy folder offering a graceful transition if fines felt overwhelming. The offer price was below recent sales. The letter referenced code compliance challenges, which you can only reference if you're reading someone's violation ledger. The timing on those packets? Within a week of lien warnings. I added a tab, developer outreach, and logged every story I could confirm. I spent evenings with Monica at her kitchen table, lining up photos. We treated the HOA's shed images like a puzzle with half the border done. Where would this gutter live in our complex? Which fence knots matched? Monica's doorbell cam gave us more than a single still. It gave us context. On the day the photo supposedly captured my shed, her camera saw my patio clean, my cat asleep, and a delivery person pausing to tie a shoe. No shed. Neighbor cam still. We printed the frame where the angle matched the HOA's photo, then layered a transparent print of the HOA photo over it. The seams didn't line up. The HOA's gutter angle belonged to Building D. I'm Building B. The concrete joint spacing in their photo matched the walkway by the mail kiosk, not my pavers. If this were a test, the wrong answers had shown their work. I refined the 3 slides for the special meeting so they read like road signs. Slide 1. EXIF snapshot. Plain photo month is not equal to letter month. Device equals common phone model used by board president at inspections. No GPS. Slide 2. Weather archive plus shadow sketch. Weather station logged rain. HOA photo shows crisp shadows. Shadow angle equals season mismatch. Slide 3. Neighbor cam still plus overlay. My patio was empty. Shed belongs to another building. Gutter/pavers don't match. I kept the language dull on purpose. If a sentence sounded clever, I rewrote it until it sounded like a manual. Clara tried culture war. She sent a community email about a small group intent on undermining the volunteer board and hinted that audit costs would reduce our landscaping budget. I replied all with one line. The audit is to confirm proper use of dues and contracts. Freezing disputed fines prevents unnecessary legal and collection fees. A few minutes later, 3 owners I barely knew thanked me for a sentence they could forward to spouses. Evan attempted a procedural flank. Per policy, special meetings may not remove officers. I replied with the page of the bylaws he didn't quote, highlighting the clause that says members may call a special meeting to transact any lawful business of the association, including officer removal with proper notice. He wrote back, "Our council will review." Good. Mine already had. Then something odd happened. Vince, the handyman, knocked on my door to look at the shed situation. He spoke like a guy who's had a few conversations about me at a table without me. He peered over my fence and declared, Looks fine now. Now, as if a shed had been spirited away between letters. I asked who requested the inspection. Routine, he said, eyes tracing the line of my roof. A later look at the violation ledger showed an inspection fee added that same week. I flagged it in yellow and wrote, routine equals billed. I expanded my proxy walk. Every door I knocked on, I led with the boring core. I'm asking for your signature to hold a special meeting with 2 motions. Freeze disputed fines/liens, and audit spending/vendor contracts. If someone looked wary, I held up the one-page agenda and the phrase no transfer/no substitution. This proxy can't be reassigned, I said. It can only be used for these motions. If I don't show, it evaporates. People signed because the ask wasn't to pick a side. It was to check the math. A retired couple invited me in and poured tea like it was diplomacy. They showed me their ledger. Late fees for yard statuary. In a month when their grandson had mowed the lawn and texted a photo of his empty hands. Another neighbor had carport clutter. Fines while their car was in a shop and the carport was literally empty. The pattern wasn't just my shadow math. It was carelessness weaponized. I also pushed the records inspection. Our bylaws give members the right to review association records with reasonable notice. I requested 6 months of bank statements and copies of invoices for outside vendors. Evan set a date at the management office, then moved it again. I printed his scheduling emails and taped them in a row like a flipbook titled Delay. On the day we finally sat in a small room with a fake ficus, he handed me budget summaries and payables aging reports, no statements. I politely refused to sign the records received acknowledgement, noted the discrepancy on the form, and left with photos of the non-records he tried to pass off. Bank request, statements and invoices, not summaries. Manager response, provided summaries. The delta is a story. Monica, who is everyone's favorite neighbor because she bakes from scratch when she's anxious, started a quiet spreadsheet of her own. Owners added notes about fines that didn't match facts. One line from the far end of the complex. Got paint peeling letter. We resided last season. Paint is new. Another. Violation photo shows a grill model we don't own. These weren't just errors. They were laziness used as revenue. When Clara realized the special meeting had the signatures it needed, she tried a different defense, casting the audit as hostile and me as litigious. I answered with an offer. Let's agree to a limited scope, third-party review focused on 1. Photo evidence process. 2. Issuance and tracking of violations. 3. Vendor contracting and payments to Vince's company. 4. Management portal change logs related to appeals. I wrote it like a scope section on a work project. If she refused, it would be clear she was afraid of light. The more I dug, the more Vince appeared in the money dust. His company name showed up on the bulletin board for emergency fixes, with vague descriptions and round numbers. A neighbor on the finance committee, who resigned 2 seasons ago, whispered that invoices sometimes arrived without work orders. We asked for detail, we got attitude, she said. The board liked that he was responsive. Responsive is not the same as accountable. I printed my motions in big, readable font and carried them like a flag folded to a triangle. Motion A, freeze of disputed fines and liens. Resolved. The association shall immediately suspend the issuance of liens and the accrual/collection of fines and related fees arising from photo-based violations that remain disputed, pending independent review. Past due balances tied to such violations shall be placed in administrative hold, no interest/fees, until review concludes. Motion B, independent audit and interim board action. Resolved. The association shall engage an independent auditor to I. Review violation evidence procedures and management portal logs. 2. Examine bank statements and vendor payments for the prior 2 fiscal periods, with specific attention to work authorized to Vince's legal business name. And 3. Report findings to membership. Pending completion, the membership hereby issues a vote of no confidence in current officers and appoints an interim committee to schedule a new election under transparent rules. I booked the library's big room, asked the librarian if the projector worked. It did. and brought extra pens so no one would have to borrow a point. I also printed proxy form, attendance verification sheets so Evan couldn't claim we didn't have quorum. My counsel suggested a neutral chair to run the meeting so Clara couldn't gavel me into the carpet. We found a neighbor who used to be a school principal and knows how to keep a room from eating itself. The week before the meeting, Clara papered the mailboxes with a clarification about photographic documentation standards. It looked official until you read it and realized standards meant we decide. She also introduced a sudden policy that owner videos will not be accepted due to privacy and manipulation concerns. I highlighted the bylaws line that says evidence may include owner-submitted documentation. I wrote bylaws policy in the margin and slid copies into 3 friendly hands. 2 days before the meeting, a letter arrived titled Pre-Lien Notice. It was stamped urgent like a teenager in a school play. The amount included the inspection fee Vince had created mid-sentence, plus a collection prep fee for a collection action that only existed in threat form. I took a photo of the envelope, the letter, and my face not changing expression. I brought the set to the pile for slide 0, the one before the 3 slides that just says this is why we're here. Monica caught me in the parking lot and handed me a Tupperware. Stress muffins, she said. Blueberry documented. I laughed harder than a muffin deserves. On the morning of the meeting, Evan emailed reminders about decorum and insisted on strict time limits. Our neutral chair agreed to time limits for everyone, board included. Clara tried to add new business that would eat the clock, a landscaping plan, a pet waste station conversation. Our chair replied, agenda fixed to special meeting notice. Evan wrote, under review. I printed that too. There's a rhythm here. They create fog. I hold up glass. Last-minute evidence came from an angle I didn't expect. EXIF again, but not mine. Another owner forwarded me photos Clara had sent them for a totally different violation. The EXIF model string matched the shed photos, down to the exact device string including carrier. I added a tiny note at the bottom of slide 1. Multiple violations across units captured on same device string. Not a gotcha. Pattern. I also finally got a bank ledger snippet. Not from Evan, who continued to hand me summaries like party favors, but from a former treasurer who still kept a PDF. It showed a cluster of payments to Vince's company with descriptions like compliance review and inspection assist. If the person taking the photos is also getting paid to write violations and assist with enforcement, the incentive alignment is a pretzel. The room was ready. The projector threw a square of light across a wall that had hosted author readings and summer crafts. Today it would hold 3 slides and 2 motions. Owners filtered in with folded proxies, arms crossed or curious. Clara set up at the front with Evan at her side and Vince in the back row like a chaperone with a tape measure. I put my file on the table, inhaled like I was lifting something heavy, and reminded myself that calm is not cruelty. It is clarity. I'll save the theater for the next update, but here's where we landed by the time I clicked the laptop awake. We had quorum even without proxies. With proxies, we were bulletproof. The room buzzed like a field before rain. Not angry. Alert. Clara smiled a smile that asked the room to pick fear. I clicked to slide 0. This is why we're here. A single screenshot. Pre-lien notice with the balance circled, and under it, freeze first. Then verify. Then fix. Update 2. Our neutral chair, a retired principal with the presence of a lighthouse, opened the meeting with 2 sentences. We will follow the bylaws. Everyone will get the same amount of time. The projector hummed. The sign-in sheet filled. Proxies were logged on a separate tally with initials, unit numbers, and the clause that kept them from being reassigned like trading cards. Quorum was met on warm bodies alone. With proxies, it was a landslide. Evan tried the first procedural detour. We questioned the form of several proxies. The chair asked, which ones? Evan said, various. The chair said, list them. Evan flipped papers and produced nothing specific. The chair, then they stand. Clara took the mic and did the volunteers' community civility preamble. She added that outside agitators had encouraged hostile audits that would divert funds from landscaping. I raised my hand. The chair nodded. One sentence, she said. I said, the audit exists to confirm dues are spent as adopted. Freezing disputed fines avoids paying lawyers and collectors for errors. 3 heads in the second row nodded like they'd been waiting for an adult sentence all week. Slide 0 went up. A single image of my prelim notice, the balance circled. Under it, freeze first, then verify, then fix. No adjectives. Slide 1, EXIF snapshot. Plain. I kept it human. The shed photos embedded data shows a different month than the letter that used it. The device string matches a phone commonly used by the board for inspections. Location data is blank, common, but the month mismatch matters. Clara said, EXIF can be faked. I said, so can letters. That's why we compare. Monica raised a paper copy like a cheer sign. Slide 2. Weather archive, plus, shadow sketch. This is our local weather station's log. Steady rain the day the shed photo was supposedly taken. This is the HOA photo, crisp shadows. I drew 2 arrows, late fall versus late spring, because our lane's shadows lean different directions in different seasons. The HOA photo's light does not belong to the day on the letter. Vince muttered, shadows change? And a neighbor in the back said, yes, that's the point. Slide 3. Neighbor cam still, plus overlay, wrong patio. Monica had consented to a single still from her doorbell cam. No video, faces blurred, time labels cropped. We overlaid the HOA shed image on her empty patio still. The gutter seam, fence knot, and concrete joint lines on the HOA photo matched Building D and the mail kiosk lane. Not my Building B pavers. I said, this is someone else's shed. A murmur rolled the room like wind over grass. Clara tried to adjourn to consult counsel. The chair cited the bylaws. Once called, a special meeting's agenda must be completed unless the members vote to adjourn. All in favor of continuing? Hands rose like a tide. We continued. Owner comments were 5 parts polite, 1 part volcanic. A retired teacher said her overgrown flowers violation was dated a week of frost. Her tulips were mud. A father of 2 showed a photo of his carport clutter from a month when his car was in a shop. Another owner held up a letter about paint peeling after they had resided. Patterns make their own testimony. I presented 1 more sheet before the motions. Conflict and process. A snippet of a bank ledger, from a still-saved PDF by a former treasurer, showed payments to Vince's company for compliance review and inspection assist. I said, if the person who benefits from writing more violations is also the one photographing violations, that's a conflict the audit should examine. Vince stood. I do what I'm asked to keep the place nice. I said, then you'll appreciate clarity about who asks and how often. He sat. A man in a developer-neutral blazer asked to be recognized. He said he represented Solace Partners and wanted to correct misinformation. The chair asked if he was an owner. He wasn't. Observers don't get the mic, she said. He sat, checked his phone, and left before the vote. Clara launched a last-ditch privacy claim. Owner videos can be manipulated. We cannot accept doorbell footage. I read from the bylaws line that evidence may include owner-provided documentation. Bylaws are the contract, I said. Policies can't shrink them. The chair nodded. Someone clapped once and then remembered themselves. Time for the motions. Motion A, freeze of disputed fines and liens, was read aloud in full. Evan wanted clarification that the association could still pursue clear violations. Correct, I said. Freeze applies only to disputed, photo-based violations pending review. Real problems still get real attention. The chair called the vote. Hands rose. Proxies were counted by 2 tellers who called out units, not names. The ayes won decisively. Evan asked for a record of tally. The chair read it. Monica wrote it. I photographed the sheet. Motion B, independent audit and interim board action, came with scope printed in 14-point font. 1. Evidence procedures and management portal logs. 2. Bank statements/vendor payments for 2 fiscal periods with attention to Vince's business. 3. Report to membership. It included a vote of no confidence in current officers and appointment of an interim committee to schedule a transparent election. Clara said, "Removing officers is extreme." Someone near the door said, "So is lien threatening people for things they didn't do." The chair called the vote. The ayes carried, closer than the first, but clear. Evan tried one more process volley. "We must confirm whether the board consents to an audit." The chair turned the bylaw page to him and said, "The members just did." The room exhaled in a way I will remember longer than any speech, like a building deciding not to lien. Owners lined up to volunteer for the interim committee. We picked 5. An accountant, a retired treasurer, a nurse, Monica, because competence is contagious, and a contractor who knows how to read invoices. I declined a seat. I wanted to keep my role narrow. Evidence in, spin out. Immediate actions were voted and written while the clock still warmed the projector. Defreeze notice to manager. Direct the management company to A. Pause all lien filings. B. Place disputed, photo-based fines in administrative hold. No interest/fees. C. Suspend inspection assist billing related to violation issuance pending audit. Records preservation letter. Instruct manager to preserve native photo files, management portal changelogs, email correspondence, work orders, and all bank statements. No summaries only. Auditor selection. 3 candidates to be contacted by the interim committee within a week window. We chose a firm that audits HOAs, not Cousin Bob's taxes. I open inbox. Create a simple, paper-first way for owners to submit examples. Stills, letters, with a privacy line about redacting faces. Clara announced that she and the board would seek legal advice about the validity of the meeting. Our chair said, "Please do. Also read your own bylaws." A neighbor whispered bylaws over vibes like a benediction. On my way out, Evan stopped me with an expression he probably thinks is neutral. "This creates a lot of work," he said. "So did losing people's appeals," I said. He started to say system issues. I said, "Portal logs will show who edited what." He folded the sentence back into his mouth. I went home and turned the meeting into paper immediately. Minutes, draft, tally sheets scanned, motions initialed, freeze notice emailed to the management company with red receipts, and a certified mail copy queued in case email didn't arrive. The interim committee posted a 1-page summary on the bulletin boards. Fines freeze active, audit authorized, interim committee seated, election timeline forthcoming. No victory laps, just nouns. The next morning, 3 things happened. 1. Owners forwarded fresh violation emails with timestamps after the freeze vote. The interim committee replied as 1. Per motion A, disputed photo-based fines are in administrative hold. Please route through audit intake. 2. The management company sent a mass message that, in light of member decisions, all lien activity was paused pending further direction. The word paused looked like a truce flag. 3. An envelope showed up stuffed with color prints of violations at multiple units with the same device string in their EXIF. Whoever sent it didn't sign a name. They didn't need to. Clara posted a statement about misinformation again. This time, the responses looked different. Owners asked for links to the motions and minutes. The interim committee posted links. Someone else asked, "Can we see the vendor list?" The committee said, "That's part of the audit." Vince stayed quiet. Solace Partners didn't drop any more transition packets that week, at least not on my lane. I half expected to feel smug. Mostly I felt the relief of a seatbelt clicking. You can't steer a car if you're braced against the windshield. Where we left it. Fines frozen, liens paused, records preserved, auditor RFPs out, election plan pending. The boring machine is finally pointed at facts. If the audit says the system is fine and I've been wrong, I'll say so. If the audit says what my folder says, then we'll do the long, dull work of making a better process with receipts. Final update. Audits aren't fireworks. They're flashlights and clipboards. The firm we picked specializes in associations. They sent 2 people who smiled rarely and wrote constantly. They asked for native photo files, management portal logs, bank statements, and vendor invoices. Evan tried to hand them summaries. They asked for statements again, slowly, like you talk to a printer. He produced them. Findings, translated from accountant to human. Photo chain of custody equals none. Images were stored in a shared folder labeled violations, with no origin tags. Some files had been exported, renamed, and resaved multiple times. The EXIF month mismatch showed up across multiple units. Portal edits. The log showed appeals toggled from received to not received by a single user account tied to the management company, often within a day of owners submitting. The audit could not find a valid reason code. Payment clustering. Vince's company was paid for inspection assist and compliance review in bursts that correlated with weeks of heavy violation letters. Several invoices lacked work orders or scope detail. Amounts were round and repeated. Developer proximity. Emails from a generic HOA inbox to Solace partners attached delinquency lists shortly after pre-lien notices, with a chirpy line about potential opportunities. No vote authorized that sharing. What it wasn't, criminal TV. What it was. A pile of processes bent until they pointed in one direction. Toward more fines, more fees, and owners too tired to fight. The interim committee posted the summary on one page, nouns only. Then they did the dull brave things. Directed full reversal of photo-based fines that failed the evidence standard, plus waiver of admin/late fees, and withdrawal of pre-lien notices tied to those fines. Froze payments to Vince's company pending reconciliation. Required work orders for any future spend. Open bids for maintenance separate from compliance. They issued a records retention policy, native files, hashes at capture, 2-angle requirement, and a physical marker card in frame so photos can't be shopped between units. Turned on portal receipts. Every submission now gets an ID and an email copy no one can edit. Adopted an owner evidence rule. Doorbell/dashcam stills are accepted with a simple redaction template. Wrote a conflict of interest policy barring any vendor from paid inspection roles if they also bid on repairs those inspections generate. Clara resigned for health reasons. The week the draft hit the bulletin board. No speech. Paragraph. Evan's firm was given a choice. Accept the new policy stack or terminate. They chose termination. A smaller, boring management company the committee found took over with a contract that reads like a prenup for spreadsheets. Vince sent a short email wishing everyone well. The committee thanked him for prior work and ended the relationship. The election that followed was quiet. Paper ballots, observers, tally posted the same evening. Monica was elected by a landslide because competence like rot spreads just nicer. An accountant took treasurer. A nurse took secretary. She documents things you didn't know had names. A contractor with no bids pending took maintenance. I didn't run. I like being the neighbor with a folder more than the person with a gavel. My own ledger reset to 0 with an apology line that wasn't flowery. Fines removed, fees waived, pre-lien withdrawn. 3 other owners sent screenshots of the same. The retired couple with the yard statuary saga got a note saying no violation and a gift card for plants as a goodwill gesture. They used it on herbs and kept the receipt like a love letter. And Solace partners? Their representative sent a let's reset email to the committee. The committee replied with a copy of the new data sharing policy. No delinquency lists to third parties without a membership vote. No sales pitches in violation envelopes. Ever. The packets stopped appearing. Funny how sunshine chases off mold. I wish I could tell you Clara had a come to EXIF moment. The closest we got was an email from her personal account saying she only wanted standards upheld and regrets any distress. That's not an apology. It's a weather report. I printed it anyway and filed it under closure. Approximate. Life in the lane shifted from siege to chores. The board posts violation galleries now. 2 angles, marker card, hash code, and the line, you have X days to respond. Reply to this email for an auto receipt. People still get notes, trash carts wander. Paint peels, but the evidence is evidence. Appeals don't vanish. They get numbers. The newsletter has minutes instead of flavor text. The cat sleeps in sun patches I can enjoy without imagining liens. A few things I learned that might help if you're reading this in the middle of your own fog. A bylaws policy. The contract you all signed beats the clarifications people invent. Bring the page. Read the sentence. Make proof dull. Clever lines can be argued with. Checkboxes can't. 3 slides beat 3 rants. Proxies with locks. No transfer/no substitution. Cut off the favorite trick of swapping signatures. Separate compliance from contractors. Never pay the person who profits from violations to manufacture them. Receipts on submissions. If a portal can flip received to not received, add IDs and email copies no one can edit. Am I proud? Mostly I'm relieved. Communities don't need heroes. They need procedures that outlast moods. I wanted a quiet place to stack library books. I got bylaws literacy and a new respect for muffins baked under stress. Worth it. We'll probably never know whether the shed photo mix-up started as laziness or design. The audit didn't name villains. It named gaps. We closed them. That's not cinematic. It's livable. If you were waiting for the got a moment, there isn't one. There's an empty lien file, an audit binder, and a path back to normal. On a Saturday not long ago, I heard laughter over by the mail kiosk instead of whispered outrage. Someone had moved a bench into the shade. The shadows fell the direction they were supposed to. It was enough.